the old legends are to be believed, there was once a being born into the warp from the depravity and corruption of an entire species. Across thousands and thousands of Terran years, the ancient Aaeldari let themselves drift deeper into decadence. Their souls held limitless passion, and their psychic powers were nearly limitless, so the disturbances they stirred within the Immetarium were unlike any others. Even this faint piece of knowledge is little more than rumor to most who live in the galaxy. Fewer still know the secrets kept inside the shrouded vaults of the Black Library. That hidden craft world lies deep within the webway as the ancient storehouse of Aaeldari knowledge. In its somber chambers, ancient manuscripts speak of an unspeakable event that changed the galaxy forever. From the perverse thoughts, actions, and deeds of the Aaeldari, a new god came into being. It was a real god, and it reflected the species that had unknowingly given it life. Its violent birth marked the coming death of the species that had gestated it. The tomes of the Black Library say that Slaanesh was born from a need for sensation that had grown uncontrolled and excessive. This need had come to fill nearly every moment for nearly every Aaeldari. Through their advanced technology and psychic mastery, the species lived through the Terran millennia in unimaginable luxury. They no longer needed to worry about daily survival, manual labor, or the threat of enemies beyond their borders. They were not bound by social constraints in any lasting way. They had no need to consider how their actions might affect others. Even their own families could not truly claim them through need or dependence. Everything was theirs at all times, and even death had lost its old meaning. In that distant age before the birth of Slaanesh, the souls of the Aaeldari could reincarnate from the Immetarium into newborn members of their species. There was not yet anything in the Empyrean that hungered after those souls. The passions within Aaeldari souls burned deeply, and they were allowed to move without restraint. They explored them freely to depths that other intelligent species could not understand. A mind freed from fear, need, and death can turn fully inward. It can wander into unknown places, searching for diversions and sensations never considered before. When an entire race unshackled its minds in this way, great psychic energy poured into the warp. The unnatural essences that dwell there responded to what had been cast into it. The darkest moment of Aaeldari history, known as the Fall, became a cautionary tale. The Black Council studies it continually within the Black Library. Their hope is that some path may still be found toward a return to ascendance. Failing that, they seek at least some way to avoid the doom that always seems to wait for their species. The tale says that the vast majority of the ancient Aaeldari were unprepared for the god they had birthed. In a single instant, they were consumed by it. Their minds were connected to chaos in a way they had not foreseen. Worse still, their souls were bound to that darkness. They had become slaves to what they had made, and when their newborn master hungered, the souls of the Aaeldari were taken as its sustenance. For most of the remaining Aaeldari, the birth of Slaanesh changed the course of their history and their people. After the fall of their civilization, they withdrew to their craft worlds. There, they shaped a new way of life around also held to a quiet determination to resist their doom and survive. That resolve was strengthened by fear, which drew most who resisted change into the new way. This was the way of the Asuryani path. Slaanesh was not satisfied with the souls it had harvested at the moment of its birth. It continued to seek the remaining Aaeldari, savoring each soul that it claimed. For a race once so proud and seemingly eternal, such a fate was terrifying to imagine. To be snuffed out forever, only to nourish a twisted god, was a horror beyond mortal life. The fact that this deity had been made by their own species only deepened the fear, yet some Aaeldari still refused to change. Whether through pride, defiance, or the simple inability to change, the Drukari kept walking a path of excess. They continued in sensual indulgence, and they still follow that path to this day. They live every moment, knowing it may be their last, not only in mortal life, it may also be the end of their eternal existence. That sense of risk keeps them balanced on the edge of a knife. It drives them toward even greater acts of depravity and toward ever further limits of sensation. They are not the only beings who damn themselves in this way. The powers of chaos hold sway over many mortals because their appeal is not rare or distant. With Khorne, there is the nature of conflict and the struggle for survival. With Nurgle, there is the certainty of death and decay, along with the fear and despair that follow. With Tzeentch, there is the changing nature of the universe. There is also the need for some measure of control through knowledge and worldly power. These are base instincts within every mortal mind. They are primal parts of life for every intelligent living thing in the galaxy. Slaanesh is no different in this. Its appeal rests in ideals that can seem innocent at first. Every being seeks happiness, and every being desires improvement in pursuit of it. Very little has more power over a mortal heart than desire in all its forms. No matter the species, desire is universal. All beings want more than they already have, and they are never truly content. Where an Imperial guardsman seeks glory, he finds Slaanesh. Where a rogue trader seeks wealth, he finds Slaanesh. Wherever desires are followed to their end, Slaanesh waits beyond the need to satisfy them. At the end of that quest lies utter damnation. Khorne appears as a frightful and terrible warrior, and Tzeentch is shaped by sorcery that defies mortal logic. Nurgle stands as the final image of its own decaying and physically disgusting creations, but Slaanesh alone is divinely beautiful. Humans usually speak of Slaanesh as a he, while the Aaeldari speak of Slaanesh as female. Yet Slaanesh is truly neither gender and combines the qualities of both in a perfected form. Slaanesh most often appears as an androgynous being, with a woman on the right side and a man on the left. From its head rise two sets of devilish horns, giving the form a strange and unsettling grace. Slaanesh may take any physical shape, whether male, female, both at once or without gender at all. Even so, Slaanesh prefers male bodies, and every chosen form appears as a kind of perfection. It is a long-limbed and elegant figure with a beauty that feels haunting and almost almost frightening. Its appearance changes with the one who sees it, shifting gently to please and seduce the beholder's eye. Whatever form Slaanesh takes, 2 pairs of slender horns rise from flowing golden hair. Slaanesh is often shown in richly lined, form-fitting armor and bearing a jade scepter said to be its greatest treasure. Among its cultists, there is a rumor spoken with fear and devotion. To look upon Slaanesh is to give up the soul itself, surrendering it to the gods' every whim. Across the galaxy, Slaanesh sees the touch of its own hand in many small and powerful moments. It finds pleasure in the joy of a parent when a child is born, and in the pride of a commodore when a fleet carries out a cunning battle plan. It is pleased by the stirring of a lover's heart in a close embrace, and by the sudden relief a soldier feels after an unexpected skirmish. Yet these sensations are never enough for the Master of Delights. The ruin of the Aaeldari and the pursuit of the few who remain bring great joy to Slaanesh, but its desires reach far beyond that. Every breath can bring a new scent, and every raised glass can offer a new flavor. On the battlefield, every chainsword blow may draw out a scream of pain that has never been heard before. From its glittering palace in the Dark Prince's realm, the Lord of Excess takes delight in each new sensation that is found. It guides the inhabitants of the galaxy onward, always pushing them toward higher and stranger heights of experience. A god knows existence in ways no mortal can truly imagine. But Slaanesh is not content to leave the galaxy alone. It sees the stars, the planets, and the fabric of reality itself as something to be handled. It would poke, prod, tear, and bind all things to its will, drawing out every last sensation that might be enjoyed. Those who choose to serve it try to follow this example as best they can, even while they remain limited by mortal bodies and mortal minds. In every corner of the galaxy, the worshippers of Slaanesh invent new delights for themselves. They challenge their own senses, hoping to create experiences no one has known before. This may be as base as seeking a new response in carnal entwining, or as refined as making a work of art so profound that all who behold it are moved to tears. The truly inspired seek much larger stages for their desires. Few have seen entire squads of space marines vanish beneath the fire of a subjugator chaos titan. Fewer still have heard a million voices cry out in fear, followed by dripping stillness as nucleic acid bombs dissolved flesh away. Most beings lack the vision needed to create such scenes of sensation. It may not even be possible for the greatest excesses to be reached in the mortal realm. In the realm of chaos, however, all things remain possible. Many factions of the Adeptus Ministorum and the Adeptus Terra embody restraint and the denial of base enjoyment. They know that freedom is often the easiest path to corruption for imperial citizens. Because of this, they impose harsh rules and a harsher existence within the Imperium. For the greater good and the defense of all the Emperor has created, they fill each waking moment with labor, prayer, and punishment. They believe that a human mind left to reflect on anything else may drift toward selfish thoughts and desires. The ruinous powers use such thoughts as a crack through which a mortal soul can be claimed. There is danger in this approach to order because chaos can be born from it easily. The merciless attention of adepts, the harsh laws of planetary governors, and other agents of imperial law have driven many towards Slaanesh. These are people who might otherwise never have embraced the Dark Prince at all. A mind buried beneath hardship and burden has little room for thoughts of sin. Yet when even a fleeting moment of relief appears, it shines against the dark weight of life like a candle. For many who stray, sin is not chosen for rebellion, but as a way to escape constant struggle and restraint. This is the relief that Slaanesh offers in overflowing measure. The downtrodden people of the Imperium are not alone in feeling the crush of a bleak galaxy. War is always present among the stars, and countless beings fight over limited resources. There are also humans on the edges of imperial rule, whose lives are little better than those under its full yoke. Life in the Imperial Center is harsh, though it offers a small measure of safety compared with frontier existence. Everywhere in the galaxy, life is cruel enough that any comfort can become difficult to resist. The Dark Prince uses this truth whenever it can. A little kindness or a passing moment of joy can be enough to begin a soul's path toward damnation. Yet comfort is only one sensation among many, and Slaanesh offers more than release from suffering. There are those who, like the Aaeldari of old, have known what it means to live in luxury. Removed from daily torment, people with time and means often find experimentation appealing. They may seek the finest foods, the most exotic incense, and music from ancient peoples long extinct. Obsession, however, does not belong only to the wealthy and powerful. A mind and body without luxury can still find delight in things others would never notice. The sound of wood crackling in a fire, the sight of drool soaking into cloth, or the taste of freshly cut fingernails can become the center of desire. All that is needed is the wish for more and the willingness to set aside restraint. Nearby homes hold wood that can burn, and the people inside have mouths that can give up drool. Their fingers have nails enough to be eaten once all attention has turned toward obsession. Whatever the craving may be, a mortal can only go so far alone. There are actions and sensations that need a dark mind aided by powerful allies. With the right mutations, fingers may become ethereal tentacles that pass through skulls and absorb pleasurable memories directly. With ritual devices filled with warp energy, a bold mortal can distill the fears of a tortured captive. From that fear, they can make an exquisite drink unknown even in the richest banquet hall. In exchange for something as small as a soul, a person may gain the power to heal any wound instantly. Such a gift can let them live again and again through the act of cutting out their own organs. These sensations and so many others are open to those who desire obsession through service. In this way, the Master of Excess offers indulgence without the comfort of limits. When the Dark Prince tore a hole in reality with its coming, its newborn form knew only hunger and cruelty. Slaanesh consumed billions of Aaeldari souls, taking delight in their horror as they met eternal damnation within its being. It soon turned to other torments, seeking ways to devour the rest of the species that had given it life. The act of consuming its own creators gave Slaanesh a pleasure that few can understand. Since then, it has always pushed itself to discover new joys between its soul meals. Slaanesh delights in suffering and pain, and it basks in the adoration of those it punishes. Yet the Lord of Excess is not a simple being, and such pleasures can only satisfy godly desires for a time. Through its followers, Slaanesh continues to experiment with sensation. Mortal and demonic beings feel pride, seek more, desire improvement, and obsess over material and immaterial longings. The Lord of Excess gives such beings the power to claim what they seek. In doing so, it allows them to experience the sensation of gratification. The cruel trick is that Slaanesh gives its followers power and also gives them cravings that demand still more. It gives them addiction to sensation. As they feed their desires and become insatiable, Slaanesh binds itself to them and shares what they feel. Each bolter recoil against a Chaos Space Marine's shoulder becomes like a lover's caress. Each drug-induced dream is shared as though it were a rich meal. Each vile urge of the Dark Prince is passed back in a tiny measure to its followers. They are rewarded for obsessive acts and then driven onward toward greater deeds. Even the other dark gods of chaos can satisfy the desires of Slaanesh through their servants. A berserker who kills in the name of Khorne feels pride in his work and satisfaction in the gore he has made. Slaanesh feels that pride along with the hunger for greater glory. A spy who topples a regime is rewarded for service to Sinch and takes delight in stealth. Slaanesh feels that spark of pleasure, then deepens the mortal need to perfect their abilities. A diseased plague victim who draws strength from Nurgle to survive rests in comfort. Slaanesh feeds their love of the indolence and serenity that follows. In these ways, the actions and sensations of all beings can serve its hungers. Through pride, comfort, skill, and craving, the perfect prince is nourished again and again. Slaanesh is the youngest of the Chaos Gods, and among the ruinous powers, the Prince of Chaos alone appears truly beautiful to mortal eyes. It can seem innocent, gentle in manner, and deeply tempting in speech, with a grace no mortal can safely endure. Slaanesh may take any alluring physical form it desires, and any mortal who looks upon it loses the soul to its slightest wish. Those who long for charm and fellowship may turn towards Slaanesh, because its gifts can make them admired, popular, and inspiring. Poets and artists may be drawn by promises of fame and inspiration, just as hardened warriors may crave applause and loyal followers. Yet the pleasures offered by Slaanesh slowly lose their first sweetness, and its servants begin to need greater sensations. They are driven further into self-fulfillment and excess, until only acts of deep decadence and debasement can move them. What began as desire becomes addiction, and the purest pleasure they seek becomes harder and harder to reach. Slaanesh is also the chaos god of passion, obsession, luxury, art, and indulgence. It is the shape of hidden vice, cruel passion, and secret temptation, kept fearfully inside mortal hearts. This lack of restraint draws many mortals into its worship, often in places of carnal pleasure. There they gather to praise their depraved lord, following desire wherever it leads. A notable Slaaneshi cult was formed by the Aaeldari cults of pleasure, which partly caused the fall. Those cults also created the evil cousins of the Aaeldari, the Drugari. Yet the Drugari fear that the Prince of Pleasure will devour their souls, much as the Asuryani fear the same fate. In this shadow, the memory of the fall remains close to Slaanesh's worship. The followers of Slaanesh seek pleasure in every experience and soon become dulled to ordinary sound and color. To stir themselves, they often wear bright and garish armor or clothing, decorated in extravagant ways. They pursue higher forms of experience in more extreme and outrageous fashions. Slaanesh's influence often reaches the upper levels of power, where luxury and privilege are greatest. The Prince of Chaos corrupts nobility and the wealthiest imperial families with quiet patience. Its influence may seem most insidious among those who strive to appear upright. It takes a particular joy in corrupting souls who proclaim their own rectitude. Even a pious pontiff of the ecclesiarchy must eventually rest, and in dreams, unconscious desires may betray him to the master of carnal joys. The more civilized a society becomes, the more often the seeds of Slaanesh may begin to grow. When technology spreads leisure widely, hidden wants can be drawn down dark paths by subtle influence. Its worshippers hold great orgies of vice and perversity to honor the Lord of Pleasure. When many die from exhaustion and overstimulation, their deaths are taken as signs of the Dark Prince's favor. Devotees of Slaanesh say that any extreme sensation or emotion can open communion with their god. They believe the echoes of its birth scream live inside every mortal soul. So they pursued rapture, torment, and drug-fueled hypersensuality with souls burning bright and hot. Like shooting stars, they plunge deeper into the psychic maelstrom that is Slaanesh. Countless worlds have fallen into anarchy when Slaaneshi pleasure cults became too widespread to contain. On those worlds, order was lost in an insane frenzy of self-gratification. Many have reenacted the fall of the Aaeldari in smaller form as society collapsed around them. Through the minds of psychers, the howling winds of chaos then ravaged their worlds. Sometimes only a handful of gibbering survivors remain after such a fall. They are so changed by the experience that they can no longer be called mortal or sane. Certain inquisitors of the Imperium have come to loathe the followers of Slaanesh for this corruption. Their attempts to suppress pleasure draw recidivists, smugglers, criminals, and black marketers closer to Slaanesh's mortal adherents. Servants of Slaanesh have used incantation, conjuration, and accursed craft to seduce and corrupt man and beast. They bring others low in the sight of those who witness their works. Their offenses are numberless, and their actions are described as heinous and wicked. Twisted in mind and body, they delight in abominable and unclean deeds. But denizens of Slaanesh spread the depravity of chaos to the unwary and the uncaring. Their heretical crimes cry out against nature and the true order of the world. On the battlefield, the electric colors of their contorted forms offend the eye. Their diseased lewdness offends the mind with the same open defiance. Some show half-bared torsos of pink and blue, boasting of unreined lust. Others display limbs in glistening greens and yellows, pale shades of corruption hiding darkness within. They have abandoned the last remains of true decency. In serving the Prince of Pleasure, they sacrifice their humanity and spread corruption among the innocent. Worshippers of Slaanesh are known for having no fear, because even defeat or death becomes an experience to enjoy. They are not interested in the dirty warfare of Khorne's narrow-minded berserkers. Slaanesh instead takes pleasure in combat that becomes artistic. In the battles of gifted gladiators, fighting changes from a means to an end into an art of its own. Slaanesh gives favor to those who act upon an interest in art, whether combat, painting, poetry, or passion. Its favor helps the artist create, and it amplifies the work to immeasurable levels. At the same time, the artist is corrupted beyond description. Mortals who look upon such creations are left both entranced and terrified. The mark of Slaanesh combines conventional human symbols for male and female, though followers seldom wear it openly. In its place, they often wear jewelry marked with erotic motifs. Their robes are often open to leave the right side of the chest uncovered. This is required in many rituals involved in the worship of Slaanesh. Pastel and electric shades are the chief colors of the cult, although white is often used as well. These colors may also appear in everyday clothing, adjusted to match current fashions. Whatever else changes, Slaaneshi followers wear garments of sensuously high quality. Slaanesh is served uniquely by the Chaos Space Marines of the Emperor's Children Trader Legion, hedonistic psychopaths who wield unique sonic weapons in battle. Those corrupted by Slaanesh first feel every sensation with unbridled wonder and a flush of pleasure. Each new situation seems to pass through eyes newly tinted by wonder. As time moves on, the same pleasure demands greater extremes of sensation. The corrupted soul soon needs to be surrounded by intense sound or garish color, especially bright pinks and purples. In time, moral degeneration begins to settle over the person corrupted by the Prince of Chaos. Only the most extreme behaviors can still bring the enhanced pleasure that Slaanesh offers. These may include sadistic murder or highly degrading sexual practices. By then, the individual is usually so bound to the Chaos God that mutational gifts may begin to appear. These gifts come from the Dark Prince and are meant to increase pleasure or physical perfection. Groups corrupted by Slaanesh, whether knowingly or unknowingly, often turn toward radical body modification. They may use made-up clothing or surgical alteration where the technology exists. Their intent is to increase their perfection or to sharpen their ability to feel pleasure through every sensation. At the end of this path, even death itself becomes an experience of immense pleasure. This is true both in dealing death to others and in undergoing it oneself. The final moment becomes pleasure before the soul is absorbed by Slaanesh in the immaterium. Every enhanced sensation and every corrupt deed then strengthens the Prince of Chaos in the warp. Across the galaxy, billions of souls surrender themselves to Slaanesh through corrupt acts of devotion. Men and women cast themselves upon altars of degradation or wear the skins of loved ones. They do these things in the hope that their divine Lord will take notice. For most of them, the effort is futile in a galaxy already filled with the insane and depraved. Common sin is not enough to draw the attention of a god of insidious excess. It takes something greater and something closer to true artistic achievement in pain and pleasure to be recognized as one of the most devoted wicked souls demands effort beyond most mortals. Only those who push nearer to perfect depravity may become champions among the followers of the Lord of Delicious Torments. Those who reach the greatest levels of excess may be recognized within the ranks of Slaanesh's chosen. For the rest, there is no glory and no reward waiting at the end. Their fate is only common death or the short and painful lifespan of a degraded chaos spawn. Recognition as a champion of the Dark Prince comes with a price, and the chosen are glad to pay it. Their souls are forfeit, but possible immortality through demonhood makes that price seem small. To stand upon the grand stage with the Lord of Sensation is their fulfilled desire. Their lives move forever onward beneath unquenchable wants. In that endless hunger, the one desire they truly wanted is finally granted. Slaanesh is said to care little for the other ruinous powers, being too drawn into its own pleasures to seek alliance or cooperation. Among them, the followers of Khorne stand as particular enemies, with their harsh belief in bloodshed for its own sake. In the mortal realm, cults of Khorne and Slaanesh clash again and again. In the realm of chaos, their demonic legions are believed to battle without end. This rivalry shapes the armies that gather around each god, because Slaanesh is weaker in direct confrontation, but far more dangerous through corruption. Its endless hunger can turn even Khorne's faithful aside, drawing them through their own battle lust. In a wide and advanced war, Slaanesh's influence can become especially dangerous. A single convert in the right place may wreck a fleet or destroy an entire city. Where Khorne's followers grow loud and fierce, the servants of Slaanesh can often be found moving quietly behind them. They work with care and patience, seeking the slow downfall of those who oppose them. Slaanesh is the youngest of the major chaos gods, yet it remains a crucial part of the great game they play for dominance. It cannot yet stand alone against any one of the other major chaos gods, but its support in an alliance can shift the balance. Because of this, Slaanesh holds more influence than its raw power might suggest. Within the great game, the bond between Slaanesh and its brother gods remains one of the most compelling tensions. None can inflame Khorne's fury like the Lord of Excess, whose earthly luxuries and lusts defy the blood god's desire for indiscriminate slaughter. The mere mention of Slaanesh or its schemes is enough to make volcanoes erupt across the blood god's domain in the realm of chaos. Khorne is the only god openly hostile to the Dark Prince, but Nurgle and Sinch are also uneasy in its presence. This remains true even though the usual hierarchy among the four major chaos gods places Slaanesh at the bottom. They still feel the pull of Slaanesh's matchless charisma, and they are both drawn toward and pushed away from their younger brother. This fear grows from the nature of the chaos gods themselves, because each one carries some form of the excess that belongs to Slaanesh. Khorne has its bloodlust, Sinch has its scheming, and Nurgle has its spreading of plague. Each obsession can be turned by the Dark Prince with only a whispered promise. Deep within each brother god lies the suspicion that Slaanesh's influence is growing quickly, and that one day it may eclipse them all in strength. With that thought close behind every pact, any alliance of convenience with Slaanesh is likely to be brief. This may come from distrust of a power that changes sides at a whim. Yet there is also the darker possibility that the rival gods fear the secret power the Dark Prince holds over them. Slaanesh is unlike its brother gods, for it does not simply bar the way to its home. In the realm of chaos, the Dark Prince's realm opens itself like an invitation, drawing others inward toward the gleaming palace at its heart. The tales of the heretic Cardinal Wakalta speak of the Palace of Slaanesh, also called the Palace of Pleasure. They place it at the center of the Dark Prince's empire, with 6 other domains gathered around it in great concentric rings. Each ring offers a different temptation to those who wander there, asking them to surrender to the pleasure set before them. Temptation serves the Dark Prince as surely as any chainsword or bolter might serve a warrior. Some traps catch the weak and the dim, and those who fall are not simply left behind. Their bodies are taken by the land itself, or reshaped into statues that make the view more beautiful for those who follow. The souls of the lost and damned feed the hunger of Slaanesh, which is never satisfied. It invites them inward so they may sustain both the god and its realm. Those who pass the earliest tests may draw the god's notice, and for a time their struggle may amuse it. Yet the struggle is only another part of the seduction waiting around them. Those rare few who reach the outer walls of the Palace of Pleasure may receive a visit from the Lord of Excess itself. None have entered the palace unless Slaanesh desired it, because all who looked upon the god's perfection fell to their knees and surrendered themselves completely. The ecclesiarchy uses tales of wayward souls like the heretic cardinal to warn its servants against temptation. These warnings draw from wild descriptions of the Dark Prince's domains and its minions, whether those accounts came from true experience or from ravings born of fever or drugs, real or imagined. Such stories can still guard simple minds from dreams of wealth and the pleasures wealth can buy. In the first ring of the Dark Prince's realm, day fades into night as golden hues give way to soft blue. Above the land, the sky shimmers without rest, and the heavens glitter with diamonds that seem almost close enough to take. Many reach upward for them, forgetting where they stand and what waits beneath them. They climbed higher through trees made of pure gold, trying to stretch a little farther. Some leap from the branches in their hunger for the jewels above. When they fall, Skulls fracture and organs rupture against the ground, yet their final thoughts are filled with glittering handfuls of treasure. That joy lasts only for a fleeting moment before the true price is paid. In exchange for false elation, they forfeit their immortal souls. The ring gives them the dream of riches, and then quietly keeps everything that remains. Scholars who gather tales of the impossible realms of pleasure and pain often describe this first domain as a spectacle beyond avarice. Trees, grass, and other plants are said to be made from living gold. Gentle wind passes through the golden blades and branches, giving them a voice that beckons all who hear it to take more. The mountains on the horizon shine with warm, reflected light, revealing that they too are formed from gold. Paths through the fields are paved with ruby and emerald instead of common stone. At the edges, loose gemstones and gold nuggets wait as though placed for any hand willing to take them. There is always room, or so the temptation seems to whisper, for one more glittering stone. There is always space for one more pebble of gold in a pouch or sleeve. The wandering soul would be wise to look away from the treasure, if only for a moment. The legends say that a clearer gaze would find dull bone among the shining things. These remains belong to those who filled their pockets, pouches, sleeves, and boots until the weight dragged them down. Even as death approached, they would not release the riches, and they died where they fell with smiles upon their faces. Mad ravings from those who claim to have seen beyond reality speak of the second trial. If an intruder passes through the golden fields without giving in to greed, they come upon a lake so vast that its shores fade from sight. Only pale islands break the surface, linked together by a network of bridges. The finest wine serves as the water of this lake, yet no cups wait along the shore. Its bouquet is strong and pleasant, carrying an invitation that settles softly over the mind. Words from fiery sermons begin to fade before such serenity, and many visitors soon abandon the thought of restraint. They fall to their knees and drink directly from the lake, letting intoxication fill their heads. Many continue until they slip into the wine and sink beneath the surface. Once the carmine waters close above them, they are never seen again. Those who manage to lift their heads notice the islands more clearly. They are not islands at all, but hunched giants holding great tables above the wine. Upon those tables rest extravagant feasts of exotic fruits, rich breads, and meats of every kind. The swim to these places is dangerous for those already made dull by drink. Many sink beneath the waves before they reach the waiting food. For those who arrive, the reward seems astonishing, because every bite surpasses the finest meal they have ever known. Each morsel becomes a decadent delight, and the hungry soul begins to eat faster. Handful after handful is forced down the throat as need overtakes thought. In that blind hunger, the eater fails to notice that some meat comes from carcasses with a horribly familiar form. Even recognition would not save them once gluttonous indulgence has taken hold. If they stopped long enough to understand the fate ahead, they still could not turn away. The mortal only ceases eating when the body fails, and then they collapse into the feast that waits for the next diner. There may be no easier road into mortal weakness than the appeal of carnal instinct. Imperial libraries hold tales of lurid corruption, beside manuals that teach how such corruption should be fought. A preacher may know in his heart that lascivious desire threatens his congregation more surely than many other temptations. The Dark Prince knows this as well, and the legends say the third ring is shaped around that truth. There, visions, sense, and experiences press upon the mind and body of any who have come so far. Rich fields of pleasing grass spread beneath teasing golden light, offering softness beneath every step. Soft tents made from spun dream threads reflect visions drawn from the deep subconscious. They form sinuous corridors so narrow that travelers brush against them as they pass. That touch becomes a cloying embrace, drawing them from one decadent tableau to another. Neither the crude flesh dens of the underhives nor the shadowed parlors of the hive spires can match what waits there. Daemon and mortal bodies twist together until they become one shape. Forms of almost unbearable beauty lie couchant nearby, beckoning to those whose resistance is already failing. Sight and sound alone are enough to enthrall most who come into this ring. Yet the assault on the senses does not end with what can be seen or heard. The air hangs heavy with an intoxicating musk, so rich that it seems to pass through flesh and open the senses further. Flesh becomes sensitive to the gentlest breath of air or the lightest caress. From braziers, incense smoke stirs memories of past amorous encounters. In such a state, the mortal becomes easy prey for those who offer the pleasures surrounding them. Demonettes close around their willing victims with soft flesh and razor-fanged mouths. They offer kisses that wound and embraces held by piercing claws. The ring does not need force when the victim has already been led to desire the snare. Within the militaries of every starfaring species, talk of glory is familiar and common. Commanders use speeches to drive troops beyond what they believe they can endure. When battles are won, the returning heroes are lifted high and covered in praise and adoration. Such adoration can settle deeply within the hero who receives it. He begins to believe that more is possible and that greater glory may still be his. Yet beneath that longing lies fear, because glory once gained can be lost to failure and derision. In those thoughts, a path to Slaanesh is set before the hero. This path is not reserved for soldiers, since governors, church leaders, and cult leaders all seek approval as well. Even fathers may long for their children to look up to them. The heretic cardinal's confession describes this road as crowded with wayward souls. It leads onward to the fourth circle of the Dark Prince's realm. For each visitor, the experience is different, even though many visions share familiar shapes. A soldier may see massed crowds cheering his name and raising statues in his honor. A planetary governor may see himself creating such perfect order that an entire star system falls under his control. Whatever form the vision takes, the victim finds it painfully difficult to leave the pleasant dream behind. These illusions feel solid because they do not seem impossible to the dreamer. A soldier has seen others raised to glory, and his training has prepared him for heroic acts. Histories tell of governors who carved out larger realms among the stars, and such memories draw the victim deeper. Only self-doubt allows some souls to break free from the dream. When they do, the illusion shatters and reveals a vast plain of black soot. There, heaps of bones lie buried beneath millions of bodies, some standing and some lying in the burned ashes. Those bodies remain trapped inside their own delusions, even as the truth shows itself for an instant. Then the unsettling vision passes away. The traveler is drawn forward again, and the traps of the next circle rise before them. When the corpse god of the Imperium created the Space Marines, legend says he faced a difficult task. He needed warriors eager to serve him through great deeds and impossible victories. Yet they also had to remain humble, knowing that victories in the Emperor's name were not personal triumphs. They were meant to be weapons in his hands, obedient and unquestioning. Those who have studied those ancient times know that he failed. Legions rebelled, led by prideful Primarchs who questioned the Emperor's plans and believed they could do better. All the while, the Prince of Chaos whispered encouragement to them. The blasphemous tales say it does the same to all visitors who enter the fifth circle of its domain. There, the temptation is not merely glory, but the deep hunger to achieve more. At first, the place appears to be a grand forest filled with majestic trees and secluded glades. The trees baffle sound, placing the mind in a quiet and introspective state. The long walk gives thought time to wander, and the glades offer stillness that feels inviting. At the center of each glade waits a perfectly still pool. It invites the traveler to sit and look inward. As they stare into the water, they remember what they have accomplished and begin to dwell on what more they could become. While the visitor sits lost in thought, the undergrowth begins to move closer. Thorny branches reach toward the dreamer. Strangling vines descend from the trees and coil gently around the neck. In the mind, the dreamer imagines legendary foes struck down and civilizations conquered across the galaxy. Others may imagine warrants of trade negotiated heavily in their favor. Then the waters rise and take the shape of whatever defeat means to that particular soul. The ensnared visitor senses something wrong and opens their eyes. In that moment, they face a vision of shame and defeat. The branches and vines then tear at their flesh and choke the air from their lungs. Their final scream is stifled by the lack of breath, and this sound delights the Dark Prince. Only an incredibly small number resist the urge to dream. Exhausted by their trials, they rise and pass toward the sixth and final circle before the Palace of Pleasure. Life in the 41st millennium is hard, short, and brutal for countless souls. For many, each day is only a struggle to survive until its end. Even species outside the oppressive yoke of imperial rule are not free of burdens. The Aaeldari, for example, must keep their craft world supplied and ready against invaders. They do this while haunted by the fate that may await their souls if they fall to she who thirsts. Still, everybody needs rest after struggle has worn it down. Any wanderer who has reached the last of Slaanesh's defensive rings must be weary. After the torments of the first 5 circles, even a moment of repose might seem deserved. Those who resisted every seduction before this would surely seem worthy of legend. The whispers of depraved wretches in perfumed palaces and pleasure dens speak of what waits there. It is a vision of sublime peace. All struggle appears to be over, and all torment seems to have faded into a distant memory. There is a beach of the softest sand, warmed by rays from a golden sun. Gentle breezes carry scattered clouds through a perfect azure sky. Music moves on those same breezes and soothes the spirit of the weary traveler. The ground rises and caresses the body as though offering rest without end. Cherubs begin to remove armor plates and other burdensome belongings. From salted mist above the breaking waves, calm figures gather with placid faces and soothing hands. They rub tired muscles, and the memories of the hard journey fade toward nothing. Peace seems to belong to the wanderer at last. Yet it becomes eternal peace if the will cannot pull consciousness back to reality. Determination sends the placid apparitions screaming back into the seas. Resolve gathers displaced armor and lost possessions. With Herculean effort, the strongest few rise again and move toward the final destination, where the palace of Slaanesh lies ahead. A determined warrior who survived the 6 circles might expect the palace of pleasure to be heavily guarded. Whether daemon or mortal, such a survivor would naturally imagine legions of demonettes and fiends around Slaanesh's seat of power. He might expect keepers of secrets at the gates and thick walls around the towers of the Dark Prince's domain. Slaanesh has no need for such defenses. Any invading force, from a lone space marine to legions of bloodletters, would find only statues of finest alabaster and perfectly shaped trees. Their confusion would not prepare them for the presence of the master of the realm. As invaders consider what looks like an absence of defense, the air becomes still. Unseen choirs begin to sing, and ears weep at the unholy harmonies. A god emerges from the palace and walks confidently towards those who stand awestruck before it. The Dark Prince smiles, and that smile is enough to disarm all who stand there. They are lost, and they care little that they are lost. The tales say this is why there are no defensive walls or demonic hordes around the palace of Slaanesh. Resistance before perfection is not possible for those who reach that place. What becomes of those ensnared by the god is beyond speculation and belongs more to fevered dreams. Not one soul has walked upon the grounds of the Palace of Pleasure and returned to tell the tale. Scholars of the obscene and decadent debate the fate of those who come so far. They also debate the structure of the grounds and the palace itself. With no first-hand accounts, none can say with certainty what form the citadel takes. Some say the palace is a single humble dwelling. In that telling, the plainness of the home makes the Prince of Pleasure appear even more grand. Others say it is the most opulent structure ever conceived, stretching for kilometers in every direction and rising far upward. Most agree that it must be magnificent in some form. A god of excess and perfection would surely have a home to match. If this is true, then spires of gold and marble may encircle an inner courtyard filled with statues of exquisite realism. Those statues may be the final form of the souls who surrendered to Slaanesh's disarming allure. If so, their faces would show absolute joy. They would preserve forever the perfect moment of grace, felt in the presence of perfection. It may be that Slaanesh itself is the only inhabitant of the Palace of Pleasure. Perhaps no demons are needed to adorn the inner sanctum, or perhaps the palace is full of life, a den of iniquity where unrivaled decadence continues eternally. Whatever its final truth may be, the palace remains the seat of power for the Lord of Pleasure. It belongs to the Master of Painful Delights and the Prince of Obsession. Above all, it is the home of Slaanesh. At the end of the time Imperial histories call the Age of Strife, in the early 30th millennium, Slaanesh was born. For the Aaeldari, that birth marked their downfall, and they would come to name Slaanesh in the feminine form as she who thirsts. The name spoke of a hunger that never rested, a hunger for the souls of their people. The Aaeldari remembered this as the fall, when the real space shock wave of the Prince of Pleasure's birth destroyed their most crowded home worlds. Many craft worlds were also lost, even though they had been made by the most forward-seeing among them to escape the cataclysm they had created. Yet the death of their worlds and brethren was not the whole of their disaster. In the warp, Slaanesh turned upon the gods of the Aaeldari, and all but Cain, Sigurah, and Isha were slain. Isha remained alive, but she was held captive in the decaying garden of Nurgle. Slaanesh had been born from the dark side of the very essence of Aaeldari being. Since that moment, Slaanesh has fed upon them, and most Aaeldari souls are taken if they die without a spirit stone. When no such stone is present to receive the soul, it is consumed by Slaanesh in the warp. The craft world Aaeldari, the Asuryani, tried to guard themselves from this fate with discipline and care. They followed a strict code of paths, each one a way of studying a single part of life or work. Through these paths, they kept away from the unbridled seeking of pleasure or knowledge. They also carried spirit stones, which shielded the souls of the fallen from the predations of Slaanesh. The Harlequins followed a more hidden road, and their sect remained enigmatic even among the Aaeldari. They passed through what was known only as the Ritual, and through it they were believed to be freed from the fate awaiting other souls. It was thought that they then stood beneath the protection of Sigurah, called the Laughing God or the Great Harlequin. That same title could also belong to a high-ranking leader among the Harlequins. Among them were the rarer beings known as solitaires, set apart by their strange and lonely role. They alone could play Slaanesh in the rarest dances of the Harlequins, and for that reason they were said to already belong to Slaanesh. They were considered cursed, yet another belief followed them in death. When a solitaire died, Sigurd was said to emerge from the webway to fight Slaanesh for that soul. The Drukari did not seek protection from Slaanesh in the same way. Their souls were devoured by chaos while they still lived, because they had continued the hedonistic and sadistic acts that had brought Slaanesh into being. In the Aaeldari domains of the webway, they kept to those ways, and the Dark Prince could draw upon their life forces through the warp. To slow the draining of their souls by the Prince of Chaos, the Drukari embraced immortality as their only defense. They psychically drank the souls of others, and by doing so, they prolonged their own lives. This need drove their constant slave raids across the galaxy as they tried to hold back the hunger of she who thirsts. Being the youngest of the dark gods, Slaanesh's daemon host is still smaller than those of the other ruinous powers. Yet its numbers grow with every passing moment, and those demons should never be treated lightly. The daemons of Slaanesh carry something of their master's perverse and unnatural beauty. It is a beauty that stirs loathing and desire together until the two feelings seem hard to separate. Their presence can bring a tide of sensuality strong enough to drown a living soul. Their promises are soft and seductive, yet they can enslave even the stoutest heart. Their forms are beguiling and monstrous at the same time. Fairness and foulness mingle within them, and the soul of the viewer is struck by that terrible contrast. The demonettes are known as the Maidens of Ecstasy, and their feminine-looking forms carry a disturbing contrast. Their seductive bodies are joined with grotesque claws, and they move with lightning speed in hand-to-hand combat. Within the Palace of Pleasure, they serve as courtiers and courtesans, made to answer Slaanesh's every passing whim. They fill the throne room as they lounge on silken cushions, gossiping and scheming for greater favor from their willful master. Beyond that realm, demonettes also serve as warriors and messengers. Their beauty and cruelty remain bound together wherever the Dark Prince sends them. A Herald of Slaanesh is an elite form of Dominette, and still a lesser Daemon of Slaanesh. These demons are stronger than their sisters, and they are given free rein within the Palace of Pleasure. The greatest heralds may even ascend Slaanesh's dais. There they feed sweetmeats to their twisted patron and stroke its body with their oiled claws. Seekers of Slaanesh ride ahead of the Dark Prince's demonic legions. They are demonettes mounted upon steeds of Slaanesh, moving as the vanguard of their master's host. The steeds of Slaanesh are lithe and bipedal creatures with smooth skin and prehensile tongues. They vaguely resemble seahorses, and their long, tubular snouts hold a poisonous tongue. These steeds are the favored means of transportation for Slaanesh's mortal chosen. Their strange grace makes them fitting mounts for those drawn into the Dark Prince's service. A fiend of Slaanesh appears like a strange mixture of creatures, given shape from warp-induced nightmares. It blends reptilian, insectoid, and anthropomorphic traits into a single chimerical body. Each fiend has a segmented body, a fine-scaled tail, and 2 pairs of humanoid legs ending in cloven hooves. It also bears gangly arms tipped with claws, which it often uses like front legs. A fiend lacks the intelligence to use those arms as grasping limbs. Even so, it can still employ them as weapons with deadly effect. A Lady of the Voids is feared aboard Imperial warp-traveling void ships, while schools of demons probe a Geller field for weakness. This daemon can worm its way into an astropath's mind. Through that living conduit, the Lady of the Voids can manifest within the ship. It emerges as a conglomerate of crustacean arms and feminine bodies, bringing madness down upon the unsuspecting crew. The ruination of imperfect beauty hides behind a seductive illusion. Beneath that disguise, its body is bloated, and arthropedal claws wait unseen. These vaguely humanoid demons feed on the emotions of men and women who strive for perfection. With cruel cunning, they push their victims to the edge of success before manifesting and slaughtering them. Keepers of secrets are the mighty greater demons of Slaanesh. They are huge and indescribable creatures, and their presence can bring even the bravest warrior to their knees in anguish and ecstasy. They are the closest companions and servants of the Lord of Excess. Their forms often carry 4 arms, with 2 ending in human-like hands and 2 in large crab-like claws. Those claws are decorated with brightly colored lacquers. In close combat, a keeper of secrets is a very powerful foe. The Daemon Princes of Slaanesh are known as the favored of the senses, the chosen children, and the blessed of the flesh. To become a Daemon Prince is the ultimate reward for a mortal follower of one of the dark gods. The path to such a blessing differs from god to god. A follower of Khorne has a more direct road, slaughtering in the blood god's name until skulls and blood draw notice. For one who seeks the full embrace of the Lord of Excess, the way is less clear. Many avenues may open, and many hidden pathways may wait for a curious and devoted follower. The devotee must choose a path and carry it into excess so sublime that Slaanesh's attention is drawn. Once the master's eye has fallen upon him, he must keep pushing past boundaries and limits. He must amuse the Prince of Pleasure in a way that is both unique and worthy of reward. Uniqueness alone is not enough, because the Dark Prince touches many mortals in cruel and horrifying ways. Those touched may be warped into mindless and unnatural forms. All the ruinous powers are capricious, yet Slaanesh's hunger for indulgence makes its caress especially dangerous. A mortal might achieve greatness worthy of notice, only to be ruined by the Dark Prince's passing mood. Instead of ascension, he could become a mindless chaos spawn. Those who receive the greatest gift are reborn as Daemon Princes. Yet, for Slaanesh, even this achievement is more like a beginning than an end. The new Daemon Prince must still push the edges of excess. He must do more and become more, because service to the Dark Prince does not rest. If he was rewarded for making an elixir so sweet that its scent drives people to drink until they drown, he must go further. He might then entice entire worlds to taint their drinking water with that deadly creation. After that, he must continue again, perhaps changing the elixir so every victim is left with a yearning smile. Service is unending and eternal, and failure may be eternal as well. Even a mighty Daemon Prince can disappoint Slaanesh. Chaos spawned him, or worse, may still wait as punishment. Slaanesh's legions of excess strike with sinuous grace. They hit their enemies in a whirling blur of lithe bodies and bladed limbs. As they move, they are horrific and alluring at once. They seem mesmerizing and loathsome together, and every legion desires to spread the corruption of its lord. Slaanesh often uses temptation and the promise of pleasures to seduce mortals and demons alike. By these insidious ways, many are slowly brought into submission by the Dark Prince. Such tactics take time, and sometimes a less subtle answer is required. When souls must be cut from mortal bodies by force, Slaanesh calls upon its demonic armies. The legions of excess also fight when territory in the Imperium must be contested. They cannot match Khorne's cohorts in raw power, Nurgle's Talibans in resiliency, or Singe's hosts in eldritch might. Yet Slaanesh's armies possess a speed and lethality without equal in the Imperium and real space. Their strength lies in that swift and deadly motion. The Dark Prince is a god of whims and strange fancies. It encourages personal fulfillment in its generals, the keepers of secrets who form the dark heart of a legion of excess. There are also noted cases of legions of excess led by Daemon princes. Slaanesh lauds the greatest of its once mortal champions, perhaps more than any of its brother gods. Some of the Dark Prince's generals command one kind of demonic legion with obsessive devotion. Most, however, change their formations as mood or need directs them. Each type of legion of excess differs greatly in composition and tactics. The Flare legions are given over to wanton destruction, and their many demonettes take pleasure in the act. The Hunter legions are masters of the quick kill. Built mainly around fast cavalry and chariots, they are suited to tracking specific quarry when Slaanesh collects his due. The flamboyant Glamiatrix legions are the most sorcerous. They rely heavily on psychic powers and mesmerism as they carry out their master's will. The Terror legions serve as a shock force. They specialize in elaborate and gory displays of combat, and they are infamous for overwhelming weak-willed enemies through the senses. The legions of eternal punishments have no single specialty. Instead, they call upon all the damnations of Slaanesh, mixing magic and temptation with finely honed battlecraft. The Corante legions may be the strangest of all the legions of excess. To them, battle is a dance, and their garish demons whirl around one another as they kill. They lack the speed and pursuit found in other types of legions of excess, yet the elegance and creativity of each kill may capture Slaanesh's favor in ways that practical assaults could never imitate. Beneath the keepers of secrets stand heralds of Slaanesh, or Daemon princes. Each leads one of the legion's subunits, known as cavalcades. Each legion contains 6 of these formations. This number is sacred, and it is most often associated with Slaanesh. Most cavalcades are built around the lesser demons known as demonettes. They are the handmaidens of the Lord of Pleasure, forming the main body of troops. In legions that favor speed or hitting power, the cavalcades often include many seeker cavalry. Hunter and Terror legions may also be supported by seeker chariots and hellflayers. Any type of legion can include the demonic beasts known as fiends. They appear most often in Glaniatrix and Terror legions, and only infrequently among the Goranti legions. The birth of Slaanesh remains more than an ancient tragedy, for it lingers as a wound in history and as a warning carried through the hidden places of the galaxy. In the shrouded vaults of the Black Library, where ancient manuscripts are kept deep within the webway, the fall is not treated as a distant myth or a fading superstition. It is studied with grave attention because it shows how even a species of immense power, freed from hunger, labor, fear, and death, could still become the maker of its own doom. The ancient Aaeldari had reached heights that few mortal civilizations could imagine. Their technology gave them lives of unimaginable luxury, and their psychic mastery allowed their passions to move with a force unknown to lesser beings. In that distant age, even death had not yet become the final terror it would later be, for their souls could pass from the Immaterium and return again through newborn members of their kind. There was not yet a god in the warp that waited to claim them. Yet a mind freed from need does not always turn toward wisdom, and a soul without restraint does not always become serene. Across vast spans of Terran time, the Aaeldari turned inward, searching for sensation, novelty, and pleasure beyond the limits that had once bound them. Desire became a hunger without rest, and every indulgence cast its shadow into the Immaterium. Every excess stirred the darkness beneath reality, until the warp began to answer what had been poured into it. When Slaanesh was born, it did not come as something wholly separate from them. It was the reflection of their longing, their arrogance, their need for sensation, and their refusal to be content with any pleasure already known. The god that emerged from the warp was made from the corruption of an entire species, and in the violent instant of its birth, the vast majority of the ancient Aaeldari were consumed by the very being they had unknowingly created. Those who remained inherited a fate that could no longer be ignored. For the Asuryani, survival became discipline, and the craft worlds became refuges against the doom that still pursued them. Their path was not merely a tradition, but a shield raised against the same excess that had destroyed their civilization. Slaanesh still hungered for them, and every soul it claimed was not simply killed, but devoured and made into sustenance for the god their people had birthed. For the Drukari, the lesson was rejected, twisted, or simply endured in another form. They continued along the road of excess, seeking sensation and depravity, while knowing that each moment might be their last, not only in mortal life, but in the deeper sense of eternal existence. Their lives remained balanced on the edge of a knife, driven onward by the same hunger that once helped call Slaanesh into being. Yet the danger of Slaanesh was never confined to the Aaeldari alone. Its allure is quiet intimate and terribly familiar, because it begins with desires that can seem harmless at first. Every mortal wants happiness. Every mortal wants improvement. Every mortal wants something more than what they already possess. Where a warrior seeks glory, where a rogue trader seeks wealth, and where any soul follows desire beyond restraint, Slaanesh waits at the far end of that longing. There, beyond satisfaction, beyond pleasure, beyond ambition, and beyond every promise that one more indulgence will finally be enough, lies the Prince of Chaos. And at the end of that path, there is only damnation.